Hello and welcome to the WVSSAC Volleyball Rules Clinic online version. My name is Dr. Jacqueline Swain. Obviously, hopefully your cell phone is muted so that you can be fully engaged in this online training. I am very pleased to be the new Assistant Executive Director in care of volleyball, cheer, swim, tennis, and other duties as assigned. As you can see there is my email contact information and my cell phone. And of course, we know we have the wonderful Tanya Kidder, our rules interpreter. There's her information as well. If you have any specific questions, feel free to text, call, email, either in the office or my cell. As you know, nothing new required reading. Interscholastic Volleyball Coaches Packet, Sports Medicine Coaches Packet are all available on our WVSSAC website. Make sure you are familiar with the Sports Medicine Coaches Packet, the Volleyball Rule Book, and of course the Officials Packet as well. Online courses that are required, the annual ones in concussion and sudden cardiac arrest are annual. If you are a new coach, heat illness prevention is also required. And of course, links to those are also on our webpage. As you know, you are required, all coaches that work with your team and your athletes are required to be trained in AED and CPR. One essential element is making sure your AED is up to date on batteries, that is checked regularly. It is required to have access to that AED at all practices and all contests. Also required, your emergency action plan. This should already be done as our seasons for both middle school and high school have already begun. If not, get that done as quickly as possible or you could be subjected to a fine. This is a very essential part of keeping our athletes safe and of course a state law and requirement. Concussions. Please err on the side of caution. As you can see here, the most important word is a suspected concussion. If there is any suspected concussion or injury, please do fill that form out and complete it on our website. It is better to overreact than underreact regarding head injuries. Speaking of concussion, our protocol is the same as in previous years. For those that are new, you will get much of this in your required course, and those that aren't new, your annual course for concussion protocol. But it is a very specific protocol. The steps have to be followed. The athlete should rest for 24 hours before attempting the progression. Again, if symptoms reoccur, then again, a rest period of 24 hours is necessary before starting this progression. In addition, along with your concussion protocol, these and only these lists of doctors and medical professionals are approved healthcare providers who can evaluate and release the athlete to the return to play protocol. As you know, we have House Bill 602, Sudden Cardiac Arrest Prevention Act. It is very important that you familiarize yourself with this act. It has to be communicated at practice and on a regular basis, your emergency action plan. Coaches have to once again be trained in CPR, AED use, and first aid. That informational meeting is essential with parents and players where you warn them of the risks of cardiac arrest with respect to participation in your sport. And those emergency action plans have to be posted on the school website as well. Continuing with this House bill, very important, your emergency action plan is shared with your local and medical service agencies. This is essential. So as you and any time and there is an emergency situation, seconds truly matter. So if your local emergency services have the plan and know how to execute it, you are saving time in the event of any type of emergency, especially one related to cardiac arrest. Again, the course is required. It is free. It is required annually. In conjunction with both cardiac arrest, AED use, and knowing where that is, a pre-game safety meeting is required. This is something we'd like to emphasize, that you are a part of a short pre-game meeting. It includes the school administrator responsible for the meeting, who is, whether it's you as the host school, your administrator, or your visiting school. Find that administrator, make sure you're a part of that meeting, and make sure that you cover where is that AED, who is my point of contact if there is any type of emergency. This should include officials, coaches of all parties at whether you are hosting a home event or you're attending an away venue. Although our sport is predominantly indoors, it's important to be familiar with the heat and illness policy and make sure you know of any athletes that could have pre-existing conditions that could be at risk for heat illness or adverse issues that could occur, even becoming overheated, even if our sport is indoors. That is important to monitor and prevent. Prevention is knowing your athletes and educating your athletes and knowing the symptoms. Monitoring is if you are practicing for outside for any reason or in a very hot indoor environment, that you know the safety guidelines. You may or may not have seen the wet bulb globe thermometer scale. This is something that schools were given. As we know, being indoors, you may not have access to your school's wet bulb globe thermometer. However, we're going to show you an app that you can download and use in the event of a hot gym or having to practice outdoors. You can know how to use it and adjust the scale accordingly. It's important to note that this reading will differ from the outdoor air temperature. The air temperature outside may be 82 degrees, but this reading could be 86, which shows you would have to use discretion, monitor things differently, provide separate rest breaks each hour with a minimum duration of 4 minutes. In this case, if it's in the yellow, 3. So again, wet bulb globe thermometer, that was the scale you use for it to make adjustments and monitor and document that you're using that if you are in very difficult hot gym environment or practicing outdoors in a very hot environment. If the wet bulb globe thermometer is not available, Zealous is the app. It works beautifully and is a free download. And lastly, on the heat illness policy, always be familiar, continue to monitor during practice. Headache, confusion, out of it look, especially in some of our longer matches. If you're at a quad or you get into that 5th set and an athlete looks to be confused, disoriented, dizzy, it could be due to becoming overheated, especially if they have a pre-existing condition. Once again, know the symptoms, know the signs, prevent and monitor. Oh, and lastly, on heat illness, in the event of an emergency, this is very important, that's why it's in red. If a student athlete is suspected of having heat stroke, EMS must be called immediately, and you have to follow that cool first before transport. That means do everything you can to cool down that athlete, use ice packs, remove any unnecessary layers of clothing, and provide an area at which they can cool down, maybe even a cooling tub in a locker room. Important dates more specific to our volleyball season. As we know, both high school and middle school seasons are underway. First contest has started today and into next week for middle school. So good luck in the start of your seasons. And regionals will take place October 27th through November 6th. We'll talk more about that later. And state tournament will be at the Charleston Coliseum and Convention Center November 11th through the 13th. General information. I'll let you look at that. There's nothing too new. Reminders about a season coaching. Flex days must be approved by the principal. We'll talk more about those. We'll expand more on non-school participation rule. Obviously, physicals have been collected as you've begun your practice in order for students to participate. The number of games allotted there, player maximums, placement on benches, and again, options related to 15 or 25 by 2 in the best of 2 or 3 matches. And that coach's agreement must take place prior to that. Flex days, it's just a reminder, principals must give approval. The cycle is right there, ends June 5th, starts June 8th. They cannot be used during the first week of high school or middle school season. They cannot be required. They cannot hold an athlete accountable, and they cannot be used as a tryout either. And flex days can only be used on Sundays with WVSSAC approval, although we prefer to leave Sundays alone. The next slide has to do with non-school participation with team sports, which is very applicable to our sport of volleyball. In our sport of volleyball, we obviously have a wonderful explosion of travel volleyball and other non-school participation team opportunities for our athletes to improve in our team sport of volleyball. What is important to note that during the same organized sports season, you cannot compete practice, or participate in a match or competition during that said sports season. What you can do is participate in a one-day evaluation of talent, also known as a showcase, which we'll clarify that term more in another slide or two, a clinic, a camp, a tryout, fundraising, photos. So very specifically, if your daughter is a member of a travel volleyball team during her middle school or high school volleyball season for school that has begun now, that will not end until after November, they cannot compete for their travel volleyball team. They cannot practice with their travel volleyball team. They cannot go away on a weekend and compete in a travel volleyball tournament during their middle school or high school volleyball season. They could try out for another all-star or non-school participation or travel volleyball team. They could do a fundraiser for their volleyball travel team. They could participate in a photo or a media day for their travel volleyball team, but they cannot practice afterwards. They can have individual one-on-one trainings. They can do an individual showcase in front of, again, like a tryout situation for a potential college coach or other type of non-school participation team. But once again, they cannot compete practice with that travel volleyball team during that same organized sport season. Individual sports are very similar, but at the same time do have more opportunities. Tennis, track, cross country, wrestling, golf, and swim, for example, they may participate with principal permission once permission has been obtained by our office here at the WVSSAC. And they are not allowed to miss any school contest. And if they are representing as an unattached athlete, they cannot wear their school athletic uniform. The bottom line is, please, if an athlete comes to ask you as the principal or you as the coach, if they are permitted to participate in a non-school team, such as a travel volleyball team, please call me, text me, email us, let us double check through our office as to what is allowed and what is not allowed if you are unsure. Along those same lines, showcase. A showcase is a term that is sometimes attached to a tournament or a game or a match. So moving to what it is not, an individual attending as a part of a team or travel team, even if the tournament has the word showcase in it, that is not allowed. It cannot be during a school event unless principal seeks WVSSAC permission, which we covered just a few moments ago in the previous slide. A practice or a game with a non-school team, even if it's called a showcase, the team is being evaluated by recruiters or an expert coach, a guest coach for that non-school participation team. If it's happening during the season, even if it's called a showcase, they cannot participate. But a one-day evaluation of that individual athlete and their talent being evaluated, or again, an individual athlete showcases their talent to be evaluated, or a tryout for a non-school participation team, that can be during the sports season, and that can happen. It is always best to gain your principal approval and run it by us as well. Moving to the term eligibility with respect to semesters. This is very important, although in previous years, unfortunately, there has been some reclassing of athletes who would want, or parents would want, them to repeat 6th grade or 7th grade in anticipation of an athletic advantage from a growth spurt or any other just belief that retaining or reclassing the athlete would give them an advantage. Moving forward, Mr. Ryan, the executive director of our office, and our various assistants and members are holding firm to moving forward. Any student entering 6th grade, the semester countdown begins. So from now on, if someone chooses to reclass their 6th grade student, they may repeat the 6th grade and participate again, but they will be ineligible their senior year. If you have any questions on that, please let us know. Our transfer policy is still misunderstood, unfortunately. So here are some reminders that students in grades 9 through 12 may transfer one time and maintain athletic eligibility. An incoming 9th grader who chooses to attend a high school outside of their attendance zone is a one-time transfer. That is their one-time transfer. On this note, it used to be that you could go back to your home school and it not adversely impact your eligibility. You had that free return to your home school transfer. That is no longer so. Any incoming ninth grader who elects to attend a high school out of their attendance zone uses their one-time transfer. Again, if a student starts a sport and decides to transfer to another school during that said sport, they would be ineligible for that sport. If my daughter is playing volleyball for Nitro High School and starts tryouts and practices, decides that maybe she won't get very much playing time at that school, and decides to go to St. Albans High School as a transfer and enroll, she will not be eligible to play volleyball for St. Albans High School. If a student participates in a flex day at a school, then decides not to attend that school, that student will be ineligible in the sport they participated in the flex day. I'll use my daughter again as an example. Let's say she attended flex days even as an 8th grader going into 9th grade at Nitro High School. And then she decided, well, I don't think I'll get much playing time. Let me go over and enroll in St. Albans High School. If she participated in those flex days, that would make her ineligible to participate at St. Albans High School. Non-public school information. This is basically for our homeschool participation. It's important that they must provide evidence of academic progress. That is the parent's responsibility. Of course, they have to meet the standard of a 2.0 GPA. They have to be on grade level and have passed a state standardized assessment, approved assessments in the fourth stay 9, or the stay 9s have to be passed in all 4 content areas. We love October in our sport. We get to honor breast cancer awareness and remember those who have succumbed to the disease. It's a beautiful tribute. Please note that is the month that you are permitted to wear pink. You do not need to request permission from our office, and officials can, of course, enjoy wearing pink as well. Lanyards, shoelaces, shirts, etc. Eligibility and rosters. We do realize there has been some issues and we're troubleshooting those issues with our website, but please make sure you have submitted to your athletic director or the person responsible for submitting athletic eligibility, and it is completed and it is accurate. Here are your legal duties of a coach. The important theme here is documentation. Your activities are properly planned. You provide proper instruction. You warn of inherent risks, provide a safe physical environment, adequate and proper equipment, match athletes appropriately, meaning we do not push them too hard too soon, evaluate athletes for injury or incapacity as we covered with concussion, heat illness, again, being certified in CPR and first aid and the use of your AED. Supervise those activities closely. That requires you or your assistants to be supervising your athletes. And we've already discussed providing appropriate emergency assistance with those emergency action plans, and do your best to protect against physical and psychological harm from others. Also, a big emphasis this year and reminder, non-paid assistants must be certified. Whether you are paid or not, you must have completed that high school diploma, GED, background and fingerprint, Form 39 with the State Department of Education. This must be done every year. It's very important. It cannot be overlooked. Anyone that's working with your squad, your team, absolutely has to meet these requirements. Here are some things that are new. These are some of the proposals that passed in our annual Board of Control meeting. Some directly affect volleyball, some do not, but it's important to note that these are revisions that were made due to legislative changes and clarification for middle schools. Individual sports can co-op now. That would be your individual sports, such as cross country, for example, wrestling. They can co-op. It just has to be for sure that there is not enough for 2 separate teams. That can't be predetermined before the season starts. It's very important that you understand that in the state of West Virginia, in terms of athletic eligibility, you're either divorced or you're not. A notary with just a separation does not provide custodial legal guardianship in terms of athletic eligibility. Reminders of out-of-season coaching. This is a change. 8th grade students are able to participate in flex days with the high school teams as they transition from middle school to high school in their specific feeder area. So for example, now if you have an 8th grade student that has completed her volleyball season, if the high school is having a flex day in the spring prior to the conclusion of that young lady's 8th grade year, she may come up and participate in that flex day as long as it is her feeder middle school into her feeder high school. Sunday contest, we defined even more what is allowed and what is not allowed. You may have a banquet, you may have photos, fundraising things, but you cannot have a practice or anything that is working on skills to improve your athletes, anything that would be deemed a practice, a match, or anything of that nature on a Sunday. This is a reminder, especially important for middle school. 8th grade students can now serve that suspension in a subsequent sport during that 8th grade year or the beginning of that same sport their 9th grade year. For example, if an 8th grade student who plays volleyball in the last game has conduct that warrants a game suspension, that 8th grade student can wait and take that suspension in volleyball as a 9th grader at their choice of high school they attend. Or the student who plays volleyball may also play basketball. If that student would like, during basketball, they can take their game suspension since there were no volleyball games left. So now parents have a choice and students have a choice. They can serve it in the same sport next year or in the same year in the next sponsored sport. We covered showcase. I apologize for the duplicate slide there. Regional format play is a little different this year. It will begin October 27th and continue to November 6th. I really want to point you to the interscholastic that details the brackets and has examples of the brackets. And as you know, our regions have been different as classifications did change. All single A, double A, and triple A have 4 regions, 1 through 4, and 2 winners will make states from each of those regions. 4A will have a top 4 go to states, 2 from the North region and 2 from the South region. Again, all of that is detailed in your interscholastic. Anytime you want to sanction a tournament or see if it's sanctioned, please contact us. We'll have it available on our website if it's already been approved, and we can work through that process with you if needed. This should say single A, but 4A, triple A, double A, and this should be single A in this column, but it's just a quick glimpse of what schools are in what classification and in what region. This is also listed in interscholastic. As you know, the state tournament will be in November, the 11th through the 13th. We're looking forward to it. 3 days at the Charleston Coliseum and Convention Center. Seating for the state tournament, we'll ask for ballots. Again, those deadlines and details on ballots are in the interscholastic available on our website. And officials information is always available on our WVSSAC website. We appreciate Mr. Rex Foster and all he does. And that can be found on the officials tab. Your test window to have that completed has begun and ends September 2nd. Please make sure you update your game reports, especially as we get close to regionals and ballots are due, and meet that final deadline to avoid a potential late fee. Our ball has changed that we will use. You may still use any approved ball, but this was the K1 Gold from last year. This year, we will, in our office for our state tournament play, use Wilson Nova Red, White, and Blue, but you still may use last year's ball. And Tanya, has her portion of this virtual training recorded for you in an additional video. If you have not already seen that, please make sure you tune in and watch Tanya Kidder's portion, as she will detail any NFHS rule changes and any other changes with respect to the game, as she's our clinician and resident expert. I thank you for what you do to help support our athletes in our state of West Virginia in our sport of volleyball. You work tireless hours and you're underpaid and undervalued, but please know I'm grateful and happy to be in this position to support what you do. Thank you for what you do, and I hope this has been informative and helpful in your journey to coaching our athletes in our sport of volleyball this season. Thank you.